I'm Joanne Moyer. I'm moderating this session, so we're just going to jump in. I'll let the presenters introduce themselves. So we're starting with Kevin and Louise.
I think I'm just going to use this mic over here. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Huang. I work at Azusa Pacific University. That's in Southern California. I'm an organic chemist. This work was also done with a student, Erika, Litson. She was a chemistry student. She graduated. And then Louise, she's my wife. She's an analytical chemist. Okay. So our title is When Truth Hurts, How Climate Science is Perceived in Society. Okay. So global warming, anthropogenic climate change, it's not a distant threat as most people think that it is. And in fact, the culprits, carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases are culprits of global warming. Recently, the Department of Defense has identified climate change as a threat multiplier. So in other words, it causes other type of insecurity, such as water insecurity, food insecurity, and energy insecurity. And currently, the economic is built on the assumption that of a stable climate. So a lot of the roads and the buildings, right? They're assuming that it's actually can withstand the weather. However, in 1980, the climate disaster cost an average of $1 billion for every 4 months. In 2010, the climate disaster cost at an average of $1 billion every 3 weeks. Right. So we can see that the effect of climate change has affected the economy. And recently, they're talking about train tracks upgrades that can withstand climate change. And so the proposal for this is about $45 to $60 billion. Climate change also affects the way we sleep. I don't know about you, but yesterday I had a hard time sleeping. It was pretty hot. I opened the windows. My room is actually next to a road, so it was nice to have the cool air, but then at the same time I was hearing the noises. So it was very difficult. So they did a national study for this, actually a worldwide study for this in 2021, and it found that there's a strong correlation between climate change and depression, growth stunts, heart diseases, dementia, and mood disorders. So it also affects our sleep as well. Okay. And lastly, social injustice to the marginalized and destitute communities. A lot of the people who are marginalized, they live in highly polluted areas or near the coastal areas. Okay. And so there are lots of responses, especially also from Christian responses. So Dorothy Borst, she gave a talk recently today, and this is one of the books that she has written, Loving the Least of These. It's a call for Christians to love and care for the poor who lack the resources needed to adapt for extreme weather conditions. And there's also medical doctors such as Matthew Sleeth, and the idea of being a good steward to God's creation, and also in this book, he modeled what it means to live a simple, more sustainable, healthier lifestyle. So it seems like it's clear that climate change, it is a big threat, it is a problem. But then the question is, okay, however, why are there still debates and why have we not moved forward in this area? Okay, so why are there situations in which instead of focusing on moving forward to solving the problems, but it's more like things are moving backwards? What I think is that it's more of the binary mindset. So nowadays, if you see a lot of social medias, it seems like it's a binary mode of thinking. So it's a us versus them mentality, right? Well, believers versus deniers. So somehow the faith element of the words of believers and deniers are actually added in there. And then another one is trust in science, and also trust in God. So as a scientist, trust in science is a little bit disturbing because science is always changing. Right, so science, because of the technology and the progress, science is always changing. So the idea of trusting science could be very, very misleading. So maybe instead of a binary approach, maybe it's a little bit more, because it might be too reductionist. So if you guys all have your phone, okay, if you guys can scan this QR code. Okay. So Yale did this study, it's called the 6 Americas. And what they claim is that it's not actually a binary, but it's actually more complicated. And so in the past, they have 35 questionnaires, but this one is only 4. Okay, so you guys can look at this, and then you can see which group do you kind of belong to. So we'll give you 5 minutes. Okay, so Louise, if you want to come up.
rest assured we will not see your answers, so you can be as honest as can be. Wow, this is a smart group. Great. All right, so as mentioned, perhaps the binary model, it is very limited or reductionist. And as a result, this study is proposing that there's a hexanary, 6 Americas. And mind you, the research was done in the US, so Canadians, bear with us. So the first group, they're alarmed. They're certain that global warming is happening. It is caused by human, and it is harmful. They also strongly support climate policies. Most likely, they even engage in political activism. However, they often do not know what they or society can do. So they're not exactly sure how to move forward. Second group, they're concerned. This group is moderately certain that global warming is happening and is human-induced and also harmful. They see the problem primarily being far, a distant threat, and that harmful mainly to other nations and future generations. So not seeing the connection right away. They also support action on climate change, but unlikely to engage in any political activism. Third group, they're cautious. They sit on the fence. They're ambivalent. They're not so sure if global warming is actually happening or caused by humans. Global warming seems like a distant threat if it's true. So it's okay. It, happens far away with the polar bears, which is not my neighbor. They don't have really strong opinions on what, if anything, should be done. Fourth group, they are disengaged. They have given little or no thought to global warming. They need basic information about climate change, and quite often, according to this survey, this group tend to be the least educated and lowest income among the 6 groups. The fifth group, the doubtful. They are uncertain whether global warming is actually even happening. If it is happening, they think it is likely not caused by humans, and they tend to be politically conservative and hold traditional religious views. And lastly, the dismissive group. This group believes that global warming is not happening, or that if it is happening, it is definitely not caused by humans. They strongly oppose policies and action to reduce the threat. More so, they may have contacted an elected official to argue against action on global warming. Now, I'm just curious, how many of you kind of fall into a group that you expected? Would you raise your hand? Oh, okay. How many of you fall into a different group than you expected? Kind of unexpected.
I can't hear you. I probably disagree with you.
Okay, that's all right. That's all right. That's what ASA is about. Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like we are all within where we're supposed to be. So that's good. I'm going to turn the time back to Kevin.
Right. So the idea is that the binary approach, seeing us versus them, that might be a little bit too simplistic, and that's why maybe we're not really moving forward in trying to find solutions. So seeing this again, this is a Yale study. Seeing in a hexanary way, a 6 America way, it actually might be more, helpful. So here's a spectrum. On the far left is the highest belief of global warming, most concerned and most motivated. So you have the alarmed, concerned, cautious. On the far right is you have the lowest belief in global warming, least concerned and least motivated. So this just shows the complexity of this topic, right? Climate change. It's not necessarily a binary, but it's more complicated than that. Okay. And here, this is a study. So this is around 2012. They did a survey, a nationwide survey to December 2022. So here, and then on the y-axis is percentage of people. So 12% in 2012 are alarmed. So they believe that, okay, we need to do something. This is anthropogenic climate change is real. 26% are concerned, maybe it's real, right? 29 are a little bit cautious. So a majority of the group is cautious and concerned. 7% is disengaged. 13% is doubtful. And 10% is dismissive. So they don't believe that it's actually, it's happening or if it's anthropogenic. Now, if we move to 2022, it actually changed. And probably even this year, with all the changes in climate, it's probably the numbers are changed too. So the alarm actually got bigger. So it went from 12% to 26%. So plus 14 points difference. Concerned about 1% difference. Cautious is actually they lost by 12 points, which makes sense, right? You have to add up to 100, right? So at first I'm like, how do you get minus, right? But you have to add up. So it's a good thing, right? So a lot of the cautious people, they move up to probably to the alarm, right? Disengaged, there's not really much of a change. Doubtful, some of them actually went up. Dismissive, 10%, 11%. That's not really much of a change. That could be an error bar, right? It could be error and stuff like that. So the thing is, if you know this is the population, right, about climate change, there's no point to talk to people who are dismissive because they already made up their mind. You can throw facts at them, right, scientific facts, but what they're going to do is they're going to take that and then spin it, or they're going to cherry pick to what they want and spin it to what they think is correct. So Catherine Hayhoe, in her book, Saving Us, she talks about instead of just focusing on everybody, but maybe focusing on the 60%, right? These people are teachable. You can actually talk to them about climate change. So if you want to focus on those 60%, then you ask the question, what are they skeptical about? So there are three reasons for skepticism within this 60%. And so if you can understand what the way they think and how they operate, then you can actually communicate the importance of climate change. So the first one is cognitive biases, and I'll go through each one. Second one is strong tribal affiliations. Third one is cognitive misreadness. Okay, so cognitive bias. So in 2011, Daniel Kahneman talks about how we make decisions. So usually if someone's talking to you about making a decision, if you have a choice, usually what the psychologists think about is there's two systems of thinking. So if you have something and you ask, okay, which one do you choose? There's this one called system one thinking and system two thinking. System one thinking is the fast, irrational, unconscious, no effort. Okay. Well, system two is the opposite. It's a slower, rational, complex decision, more logical. And what he claimed, and also there's some studies that claim is, if you have a decision to make, most people in general will use system one. So in other words, most decisions that are made are based on emotional, fast, right? Takes little effort. If you think about it, it's difficult to actually think about complex subject and try to understand it fully. It takes time and energy. Another way to see this is the elephant and the rider. Have you guys ever ridden on an elephant? Yeah, you don't have control, right? You have no control. So the elephant is system one. The rider is system two. So if you're the rider, you're like, should I really go this way? Might be a little bit dangerous, right? Stuff like that. But the elephant, if it sees something like a banana or other food, it's going to go, right? And so that's the idea that most people, when they look at a decision, they'll use their system one rather than system two. Okay. So that's one reason of skepticism. Second one is tribal affiliation. So all of us are part of ASA, right? So that's our tribe, right? Okay. And then membership has its privileges, right? And so forth. So this is more like in terms of church affiliations, right? Or politics, right? And stuff like that. Or a club that you belong to. And so if you're belonging to a club, most likely you adopt to their beliefs. And if you question their belief, right, you could be excommunicated, right? You can be shunned down by the group. And a lot of the tribes, what they do is they use motivated reasoning to maintain the status quo. So what is motivated reasoning? So it's an emotionally driven process of selecting information with the goal of confirming of what is already believed. So here's a cartoon picture. So Gilbert, do a cost analysis for consolidating our data centers. No matter what the data says, right? Make sure your conclusion is that it's a good investment, okay? Remind me why I went to college? Some liar probably convinced you it was a good investment. Okay, oops, yeah. So again, the idea, cherry pick and taking the data. Today, I think the plenary speaker today talks about big data, right? So the thing is, data in a sense is kind of objective, but when you interpret the data, right, you can do whatever you want with the data, right, to spin it to what you want. Okay. And again, tribal affiliation, if you're part of a church or organization, there's rewards and punishments, right? So motivated reason explains members' embrace of tribal beliefs. Rewards includes a sense of acceptance, security, significance, and most important, social identity, right? I'm also not just part of ASA, but also part of the American Chemical Society, right? I'm very proud to be part of the ACS member too, right? There's something about identity. If I question the tribe, if I get excommunicated, right, then who am I supposed to belong to, right? So the idea of identity is very, very important. Okay, third reason is everything is important. Everything needs our time, right? So the idea is that we're so overloaded, okay? So it's a lot easier if I go to my source, my Instagram, right? The social media I follow, or, And so, being cognitive mindset means to look for the easiest and most understandable solutions in diverting attention to these issues. Okay. But the problem with this is that we tend to, when people allow these, the 60%, it's in a sense blindly trust unverified claims. You have all these claims, they sound good, they're one-liners that sound really, really good. Sometimes there's military themes against arguments to wage war against opposing values. So instead of having a dialogue about climate change, right? So sometimes they'll have military things, demonizing counterparts, okay. And then making people asking questions, must I believe in this? Also climate doubt, it's also very profitable, right? You can sell bumper stickers, right? T-shirts and so forth. Okay. So the lack of restraint, accountability frees leaders. Usually they're charismatic. They're very, very good in their wording, right? To sell unchecked claims. And the lure of charm that attracts large audiences. So if a lot of people are following it, most likely it's true, right? Compared to understanding complex scientific data. Right, so that's the problem with this. And also, all of this about the skepticism from these 60% of the people that are teachable. So when you talk about climate change, based on all this, it's not just about one conversation. So in other words, having someone talk about what climate change is through science or other type. But it's a multiple conversation. Right? When you talk to someone about climate change, it involves not just science, but emotions, right? Morality and other dividing topics. So that's why it's very complicated. And that's why having this hexanary model to understand society instead of a binary approach is very, very important. Okay. So the idea is what do we do with all this information? So the idea is moving from uniformity to unity. And what do I mean by uniformity and unity? So here's uniformity. So I like Legos a lot. Here's stormtroopers. You notice they all look the same, right? So uniformity means having identical mannerism and form. Differences are discouraged. So everybody look, think, and act the same. Okay? Compared to unity, so combining tesseract, so you can get all these little tiles, right? Different shapes, different colors, and put them all together to form a complete mosaic tile. So accepting and acknowledging that there are differences, but we can put them all together, right, to find a solution. So that's the goal of this talk. And so here are some ideas, and I'll let Louise talk about it.
You're actually out of time.
Okay.
Do you prefer us to just close? Or?
We just close.
Sure, and maybe people can ask questions.
Sure. Okay. All right. Did you want to close or someone else?
No, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, so any questions about... yes.
I work in a public clinic with poor people.
Yeah.
And they are struggling to survive. Their ride didn't come, so they're late to the clinic. they are people who are disengaged because of finance. How many people are like that, and what do you do for them?
Right. So I think try to find out exactly where they're at. Like what you said, right? They have hard time finding transportation, but maybe going to them, right, and try to engage with them, and just try to talk to them. So just trying to find ways to go to them. Yeah. Yes.
I think this is the meat of what I really wanted to hear. We spent just a couple minutes on how we can Sorry.
So I have the privilege of directing the Center for Research in Science at Azusa Pacific University. I inherited the name when I stepped into the role because it was well known across campus. It really, I think, should be called the Center for Science and Faith because we promote science from bringing little kids to campus to learn about science through outreach events to science and faith events. And so if I can go to the next slide. So complex topics such as gene editing and AI, we talked about that this morning. They are multidimensional and they cannot be just talked about linearly. So as a result, we had a couple of symposium, and Finney, one of our graduates, actually participated in one of our symposium on AI a month ago. We had this activity called Four Corners in which we label the room as strongly disagree, disagree, strongly agree, and agree. And then we put thought-provoking question on the screen, such as AI is going to destroy humanity. And every participant had to get on their feet and choose a corner. And then we pass the mic around and we have to share, not everybody, why you chose that corner. So it was quite open and vulnerable. And instead of the usual warfare model that we will debate, argue, defend ourselves, I found myself hearing a lot of participants saying, oh, never thought of that. Well, that kind of makes sense. So I thought that was really worthwhile for us to really listen to each other and really learn about what matters to someone who's different from me instead of just staying in the defending posture, which very commonly happens in the field of science and faith. So I'll end there. I know we're already over time.
We've got time for another question or two. Yes.
I wonder if you could comment on the idea that there are tribes also within the alarmist group.
Okay.
Sometimes it's difficult to have a consensus and conversations with the
Okay, so asking to comment on tribes within the alarmist group.
Right. So that's a great point because, I mean, the alarmist group, they can actually make it even worse than what it is. Right. I haven't done the study. I haven't looked into like the alarmist group, like the tribe. But I think today, Dorothy, this morning, she talks about the importance of empathy, right? To be able to understand your audience and know who they are. And then from there, have a conversation with them. The goal is not to shut them off. The goal is not to say, I know more information than you do. The goal is saying, hey, I want to hear from you and let's have a conversation.
I think part of the problem here is that some people say, okay, if there's a problem with climate, how far are we going to go in addressing it? Does that mean we start getting electric vehicles? Or does that mean we stop having vehicles? You know, and have to ride bicycles and move into the city and all of that. So I think some of the people who are interested or promoting, advocating climate change and so forth, come across as being extremely radical in how much they want to change overall society. And when people hear that, they say, forget you.
Right. So it's very
So yeah, the comment is, how far do we go in addressing climate change?
Yeah. So it seems like if we move it slower, right, trying to address it more like having changes slower into society, that might be better accepted by society. Is that what you're trying to get at? Right. Because sometimes if it's too extreme, then people cannot handle that. Right.
We better end there. Thank you very much.